Hello and welcome to my dungeon. If you've read the Dragonbane rules, watched my character creation and combat tutorial, you should have a pretty good idea of how the game is played. But there are some aspects of playing or GMing Dragonbane that are barely touched upon in the rules or not stated at all. And if you're new to the game, especially if you come from 5e, there are some things that you have to look out for that might catch you off guard. So in this video I'm going to discuss a few specific of the rules and present some of my rulings that are not covered within the rules. This is basically how I run the game, and I hope you find something useful in here, but this is of course not the only way to run the game, just my take on it. Dragonbane combat can be brutal. With low hit points, high weapon damage and unforgiving action economy, the tables can quickly turn on the PCs. There is a learning curve, especially for players and GMs that come from 5e. So I'd advise to ease into it with a few easy fights before you challenge your players with attackers that outnumber them or powerful monsters. You also should not make it too hard to escape from a fight. Tactics like sneak attacks or ambushes are vital to win the initiative. Use focus fire to bring down enemies that only have limited reactions to defend themselves. That allows you to take out enemies before they even have a chance to act, taking their actions out of the equation and giving you the upper hand. But the same tactics also apply for the NPCs. Always be on the lookout for ambushes and don't hesitate to make a run for it if the odds are not in your favor. Because if the first character falls, the action economy quickly snowballs against you. Because the action economy is such a huge factor in combat, any heroic ability that gives you extra actions like defensive, fast footwork, dual wielder or master spellcaster is very powerful. But also abilities that let you attack several opponents at once, like double slash, twin shot or fireball, and either take them out or force them to react and use up their action to defend against the ability. Dual wield is especially interesting because you can combine it with a shield. A shield is considered a weapon too. Thus, you can attack the opponent with the shield, either force them to defend or topple them, and then follow up with the main weapon attack to do massive damage. Most monster attacks not only always hit, they can also only be evaded, not parried. So if you play a strength-based fighter, you either need enough armor and hit points to take a few hits from a monster, or you need to take the shield block heroic ability, which allows you to parry monster attack and you get a boon on the parry. If you are playing a mage, keep in mind that there are no free cantrips. Even magic tricks cost 1 willpower point. To mitigate that, I'd suggest to make good use of your equipment. A sling might not do a lot of damage, but it's a tiny item and you don't even need quivers for your rocks. It only costs 1 silver and takes up no precious inventory slots. But it gives you a tool to deal damage at range without expending willpower. Staffs are an agility-based skill, so they make a good weapon for characters with low strength. They don't do a lot of damage, but they have the toppling feature. So you get a boon when you try to topple an enemy. That means, when you play your initiative cards well, you can give a boon to attack an extra d6 of damage to your allies acting after you. This maneuver can also not be parried, making it powerful against heavily armored enemies with a low evade skill. Animism is the only magic school with healing spells, but healing, the skill, is an intelligence-based skill, the same as your magic skills. So take it and pack some bandages. Healing potions are bloody expensive, So bandages and the healing skill are your primary means of saving lives and restoring hit points, without learning animism or using up your willpower. The rules tell you that for a group sneaking past something, everyone in the group needs to pass a sneaking skill check. That might sound realistic and reasonable at first, but it is a recipe for disaster, makes stealth unusable. Even if the entire group had a sneak skill of 15, that still means everyone has a 25% chance of failure. That adds up. A group of 4 people is almost certain to fail the roll and get detected. And it gets even worse if some of the group members have a bad sneaking skill, like a knight with 5 in sneak and disadvantage because of their armor. To mitigate this and make stealth a viable tool, I make 2 changes. First, for a group check, I would just require the group member with the lowest sneak skill to roll. With just one roll, the chances of failure don't add up, giving the group a fair chance to pass the test. Secondly, I'd allow the group to take some approaches to mitigate the bad sneak ability of some of their members. For example, if you only have 1 or 2 members of the group with a decent sneak stat, I would allow them to sneak ahead of the group, scout, and only signal the rest to follow when the coast is clear. That way I would only require a skill check from the scouting group, but not from the rest. The downside would be, if the scout group runs into trouble, the rest of the group is 20 meters behind them and will take a turn to catch up with them. However you handle stealth, you should communicate to your group how they have a chance of using it without being doomed to failure. The section for traps is very short, barely giving you any advice of how to design or run them, but at least they give you the basics. Traps should not just be devices that deal damage when a character fails a spot hidden roll. Instead, think of traps like puzzles that should be overcome by clever thinking. So, use proper foreshadowing to warn the group of the existence of traps. That might take the form of a sprung trap of the same kind, perhaps with the remains of the last victim still in it, or the absence of any other notable feature in a corridor might actually point towards there being traps. Then there might be holes in the walls, uneven floors, gaps between stones, and so forth. Do not require a spot hidden check to spot traps. Ask your players what they are looking for and what they are doing to spot the traps. Just taking damage because of a failed spot hidden roll is just no fun. Circumventing or disarming the trap should also not be a skill check. The challenge should be, how can I spot and circumvent or disarm the trap? For that reason, a trap should have a clear mechanism of some kind, even if it is a magical trap. What is triggering the trap, and what happens once the trap is triggered? Encourage your players to come up with creative solutions, and once they do, just let them successfully trip, disarm, or circumvent the trap without requiring a skill check. Let me give you a concrete example. Imagine there's a magic lightning trap in a corridor. It takes the form of a silver wire with some magic runes laid into the floor. It can be spotted when you carefully go through the corridor and you notice the faint glint of the silver wire in the light of your torch. The mechanism of the trap is that once a living creature with more than 1 hit points comes into the circle, it is electrocuted. So to circumvent the trap, you could shuffle along this side and hope that your boots and your belly are small enough not to get into the circle. To disarm the trap, you might take a spear and scratch out the silver wire from the floor, or you could trip it from a safe distance by throwing a squirrel into it. I have a dedicated trap video on my channel, but I plan to make a new one since the old one is over 2 years old and it's a bit lacking in visual examples. I think I have learned a bit about trap design and video editing in the last 2 years and can now make a better video. If that and other GM advice and general videos about role-playing interest you, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. For now, I bid thee farewell, dreamers, until we shall meet again.